I mean, I think you say, you know that you like it, you know.
Mick Jagger's journey from the fiery, rebellious frontman of the Rolling Stones to a living rock and roll legend is a story of fame, fortune, and transformation. With his unmistakable swagger and dynamic performances, he became the face of an era influencing music and popular culture for decades. Now, in his 80s, Jagger faces a new set of challenges: health concerns, the evolving music landscape, and the inevitable passage of time. This video delves into how the King of Swagger has not only survived, but thrived, navigating the complexities of age while continuing to shape the world of rock and roll. Mick Jagger. From middle-class beginnings to rock icon, Mick Jagger's journey to superstardom, one that has spanned decades and transformed the world of music, began in a setting far removed from the chaotic and rebellious world of rock and roll. Born on July 26, 1943, in Dartford, Kent, Jagger was the son of Basil Joe Jagger, a PE teacher, and Eva Mary, née Scutts, a hairdresser with a deep involvement in the Conservative Party. His family's middle-class background, deeply rooted in stability and conventionality, seemed a world apart from the explosive life Mick would later lead as the lead singer of the Rolling Stones. A family's vision and early influences. Despite his family's wish for him to pursue a more traditional career, Mick's early life was shaped by his passions, which began to deviate from the academic aspirations his parents had for him. While there were no immediate connections to the music world, Mick's exposure to music came early, thanks in part to his parents' diverse interests. At a young age, Mick was drawn to the sounds of American blues and R&B music, genres that would become the foundation for his musical identity. Mick was particularly captivated by records from legendary blues artists like Muddy Waters, Howlin' Wolf, and Chuck Berry. His obsession with these artists didn't just influence his musical style, it sparked a fire within him that would grow into a lifelong commitment to music. His musical tastes and collection of records became a window into the world of soulful expression and rhythm, profoundly shaping his future sound and performance style. The early seeds of performance and rebellion. As a child, Mick was already an entertainer. He stood out in family gatherings, often at the center of attention, performing for his relatives with an energy and charm that would eventually define his stage presence. Whether it was through singing, dancing, or imitating others, Mick's natural ability to captivate an audience was apparent from an early age. This ability to entertain became one of his most notable qualities as a performer in the years to come. At the age of 14, Mick picked up his first guitar, a pivotal moment that signified his commitment to music. It was around this time that Mick, along with his childhood friend Dick Taylor, formed a band called Little Boy Blue and the Blue Boys. Mick took on the role of lead singer, and even in the early days of performing, he was developing the charisma and stage presence that would soon make him a rock icon. Reflecting on those early days, Mick later admitted that his time performing with Little Boy Blue was crucial to his growth as a performer. It was here, in the modest venues and local gigs, that he began to hone his vocal skills and establish the magnetic stage presence that would later be associated with the Rolling Stones. A struggle between academic expectations and musical passion. While his passion for music burned brightly, Mick's family remained hopeful that he would follow a more traditional career path. His parents, particularly his father, were focused on securing a stable future for Mick, one that involved academic success and a conventional profession. However, Mick's heart lay in music, and his rebellious streak began to show itself in how he secretly pursued musical endeavors while attempting to meet his family's academic expectations. Despite being accepted into the prestigious London School of Economics in 1960, much to his family's delight, Mick's commitment to his education quickly waned as his musical ambitions took center stage. The juxtaposition between his academic path and his growing musical aspirations created a sense of internal conflict as Mick began to question whether the world of finance was truly where he belonged. Even while attending university, Mick's commitment to music intensified. He began to perform with local bands and sought opportunities to further his career in music, secretly balancing his studies with his growing passion. It was during this time that Mick reconnected with his childhood friend, Keith Richards, an encounter that would change both of their lives. The birth of the Rolling Stones, a legendary collaboration. Mick and Keith's reunion is now a legendary moment in rock history, marking the beginning of one of the most influential musical partnerships of all time. They had attended primary school together in Dartford, but it wasn't until adulthood that they truly bonded over their mutual love of American blues music. The spark for their collaboration came at Dartford train station when Keith was carrying a couple of blues records under his arm, something that immediately caught Mick's attention and started a conversation. Their shared enthusiasm for blues artists like Muddy Waters and Chuck Berry created an unbreakable connection, one that would lead to the formation of the Rolling Stones. Keith Richards, recognizing Mick's talent and passion, would later write to his Aunt Patty, calling Mick the greatest R&B singer this side of the Atlantic. This recognition was the catalyst for a partnership that would propel the Rolling Stones to international fame. As Mick and Keith began to spend more time together, writing and rehearsing music, Mick's interest in his academic studies started to wane. His focus shifted entirely to music, and it wasn't long before he decided to drop out of university altogether, a decision that would prove to be one of the most pivotal moments of his career. The decision to pursue music full-time. Despite his family's objections, Mick made the bold decision to leave his academic path behind. By May 1963, when the Rolling Stones secured their first recording contract, Mick was fully committed to the band and their future success. His father, however, was furious with Mick's choice to pursue music over a more stable career, and Mick admitted that his decision was met with disappointment and frustration from his family. Nonetheless, Mick was resolute in his belief that following his musical passion was the right choice. Looking back on his decision, Mick has expressed no major regrets about his career, though he has occasionally wondered what other paths he might have taken. In a rare moment of introspection, Mick once admitted that he had considered becoming a journalist. While his love for music was undeniable, Mick's intellectual curiosity remained strong throughout his career. He even reflected that being a rock star, while fulfilling in many ways, didn't challenge him intellectually the way he had hoped. This candid reflection shows that Mick's quest for self-fulfillment wasn't limited to music alone. It extended to his desire for personal and intellectual growth. The Rolling Stones, rising through the ranks. At first, the Rolling Stones were known more for covering popular songs than creating their own original music. In fact, their first few releases were primarily covers of blues and R&B classics. But it was their breakthrough hit, I Want to Be Your Man, penned by the Beatles' John Lennon and Paul McCartney, that helped them gain significant attention. The song marked a turning point for the band, establishing them as a force to be reckoned with in the rock and roll scene. By the mid-1960s, the Rolling Stones began to develop their own sound, creating a fusion of blues, rock, and pop influences that resonated with audiences around the world. Mick Jagger, with his distinctive voice, charismatic stage presence, and growing songwriting prowess, became the undeniable frontman of the band. He not only led the band in their musical endeavors, but also became a symbol of the rebellious spirit of rock and roll, inspiring countless fans and musicians alike. A global phenomenon, the legacy of Mick Jagger. Mick Jagger's rise to superstardom was not just a product of his musical talent, but also of his willingness to take risks and defy expectations. His decision to leave behind a stable academic future and follow his passion for music shaped not only his career, but also the future of rock and roll. With the Rolling Stones, Mick helped define a genre, revolutionize the music industry, and leave a lasting impact on popular culture. As the Rolling Stones rose to global fame, Mick Jagger's influence expanded far beyond music. He became a cultural icon, known for his swagger, his dynamic stage presence, and his ability to connect with audiences on an emotional level. He proved time and again that rock and roll was more than just music. It was a movement, a lifestyle, and a way of thinking that could challenge the status quo and inspire change. Today, as Mick Jagger enters his 80s, he remains one of the most recognizable figures in the world of music. Despite the challenges that come with age and the changing landscape of the music industry, Mick's legacy endures. His career is a testament to the power of following one's passion, embracing change, and remaining true to oneself, even when faced with adversity. The Beatles' influence and the creation of I Want to Be Your Man. The year 1963 was a defining one for the Beatles. They had already found immense success in the UK, and their fame was rapidly spreading across Europe. John Lennon and Paul McCartney were the primary creative forces behind the band, known for their prolific songwriting ability and innovative approach to popular music. They were quickly becoming global stars, but even they knew that success was not a guarantee. It was during this time that they wrote I Want to Be Your Man, a song that would prove to be more significant than they could have imagined. The Beatles saw the track as a straightforward commercial song designed to appeal to a wide audience. While it lacked the complexity of some of their other work, it had an infectious energy and a catchy melody that made it a perfect fit for the up-and-coming Rolling Stones. The story behind how this song ended up in the Rolling Stones' hands is an iconic one, rooted in the complex dynamics of the British music scene and the interconnectedness of these two legendary bands. In a 1968 interview, Mick Jagger recalled how the Beatles had approached the Rolling Stones with the song. According to Jagger, the exchange took place after a chance meeting between the two bands' songwriters. Andrew Oldham, the Rolling Stones manager, had run into Lennon and McCartney outside a cab, and after a brief chat, he convinced them to meet the Stones. This encounter was the beginning of a musical partnership that would leave a lasting mark on both bands' histories. The chance meeting and the transfer of I Want to Be Your Man. At the time, the Rolling Stones were still relatively unknown outside of London. They had not yet written any original material and were primarily known for their covers of American blues songs. They had a dedicated following, but the prospect of writing their own hits seemed a distant goal. It was during this fortuitous meeting that McCartney mentioned I Want to Be Your Man as a potential song for the Stones, offering it to them to record. The Rolling Stones were initially uncertain about the track. Mick Jagger, ever the perfectionist, found the song to be too commercial and simplistic for their tastes. However, it was clear that the Stones needed material to perform, and I Want to Be Your Man provided a viable option. With McCartney and Lennon's backing, the Stones decided to put their own spin on it. Mick Jagger later recalled the recording session for I Want to Be Your Man as raw, unpolished, and completely chaotic. But it was precisely that unrefined energy that would make the song a hit. The raw energy of the Rolling Stones version. Unlike the Beatles' original version, which was polished and pop-driven, the Rolling Stones injected I Want to Be Your Man with their signature grit and blues-inspired sound. This transformation was largely due to Brian Jones, the band's enigmatic guitarist, whose slide guitar playing added a distinctive edge to the track. Jones had an incredible ear for blending blues elements into rock, and his work on this song gave it a raw, gritty feel that would set the Stones apart from their contemporaries. The band recorded the song with minimal production, reflecting their characteristic, stripped-down approach to music. The absence of a formal producer at the time meant that the recording process was more experimental, and the Stones embraced this freedom. Despite the unconventional approach, the result was a track that felt authentic and powerful, resonating with fans who were drawn to the energy and passion behind the music. Though John Lennon dismissed "I Want to Be Your Man" as a throwaway track, it would prove to be a defining moment in the Rolling Stones' career. Lennon's dismissive comments revealed his feelings about the song's simplicity. He viewed it as a commercial, formulaic piece of music that lacked the depth of some of their other songs. However, this dismissive attitude did little to dampen the success of the song. In fact, the track became one of the Rolling Stones' early hits, helping to establish their presence in the UK music scene and setting the stage for their international breakthrough. The Rolling Stones' take on "I Want to Be Your Man." Despite Lennon's lukewarm reception to their version of the song, the Rolling Stones made it their own in a way that showcased their unique sound. The band infused the track with their signature swagger, taking a simple pop song and transforming it into a piece of rock music with an undeniable edge. The song's success was not only a result of its infectious melody, but also the band's ability to reinterpret material and make it their own. Bill Wyman, the Rolling Stones bassist, defended the band's version of "I Want to Be Your Man," explaining that its straightforward structure allowed them to quickly learn and perform it. The simplicity of the song was also what allowed the Stones to experiment with it and add their own twist. Wyman acknowledged that while the song was commercially driven, the band was able to inject their personal style into it, making it a true reflection of their musical identity. The Rolling Stones version of "I Want to Be Your Man" was unmistakably influenced by the blues, with Jones's slide guitar providing a haunting, wailing quality that was not present in the Beatles' original version. This reimagining of the track was an important milestone in the Stones' journey to musical maturity, demonstrating their ability to blend different genres and make them uniquely their own. The complex relationship. Between the Beatles and the Rolling Stones at the time, the media had a tendency to pit the Rolling Stones and the Beatles against each other, emphasizing their differences and painting them as rivals. The Beatles, with their intellectual, clean-cut image, were often seen as the more wholesome band, while the Rolling Stones were portrayed as the rebellious, gritty alternative. This media-driven rivalry was fueled by the intense public interest in both bands, and it became a central narrative in the British rock scene. However, behind the scenes, the relationship between the two bands was far more nuanced. Despite the rivalry fabricated by the media, the Beatles and the Rolling Stones maintained a deep mutual respect for each other. Mick Jagger and Keith Richards often spoke highly of Lennon and McCartney's songwriting abilities, acknowledging the influence the Beatles had on their own work. In fact, in a 1990 interview, Jagger even confessed that he and Richards admired Lennon and McCartney's ability to write such great melodies and lyrics, which had helped shape their own approach to songwriting. This mutual admiration became even more apparent years later, when Mick Jagger inducted the Beatles into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. In his speech, Jagger acknowledged the profound impact that the Beatles' innovative approach to music had on both him and Richards. His words demonstrated that despite the media-driven rivalry, both bands had a genuine respect for each other's contributions to the world of rock and roll. The role of "I Want to Be Your Man" in the Stones' evolution. The success of "I Want to Be Your Man" was a turning point for the Rolling Stones. It not only marked their first big hit, but it also helped to establish their reputation as a band that could take commercial material and make it their own. The song signaled the beginning of a shift in the Rolling Stones' sound as they began to move away from their early covers of blues songs and start writing their own material. As Mick and Keith continued to develop their songwriting partnership, they began to create some of the most iconic songs in rock history, including I Can't Get No Satisfaction and Paint It Black. These tracks would go on to define the Rolling Stones as one of the most innovative and influential bands of all time. I Want to Be Your Man also had a broader significance in the context of the British invasion. At the time, the Beatles were dominating the airwaves, but the Rolling Stones' ability to take a Beatles song and make it their own demonstrated their unique ability to stand out in a crowded field. The success of the song gave the Stones the confidence to continue pushing boundaries and exploring new musical territory. The legacy of I Want to Be Your Man. The song's influence extended far beyond its initial success. I Want to Be Your Man was more than just a hit. It was a defining moment in the Rolling Stones' career. It helped to solidify their place in the British music scene and set the stage for their evolution into global superstars. The track also marked the beginning of the Stones' journey towards creating their own original material, which would ultimately shape the course of their career. As the years passed, the Rolling Stones continued to build on the foundation laid by I Want to Be Your Man. The song remains a testament to the band's ability to take influence from their contemporaries and make it their own. It was a key moment in their journey from being a relatively unknown blues band to becoming one of the most influential and innovative rock bands in history.